There's a reason you feel drained after certain conversations. A reason you walk away wondering why you couldn't just stay silent. A reason why some people seem to provoke you effortlessly, while others remain untouched. It's not because they're stronger. It's not because you're weak. It's because they've learned to control one thing you haven't: emotional visibility. You still show too much. You care too openly. You react too quickly. And in a world of power games, those who reveal their emotions first lose first. You've been conditioned your entire life to be emotionally available, to express, to connect, to be warm. But warmth without boundaries becomes an invitation to be tested. And in Machiavelli's world, a world that still exists beneath the surface of every room you enter, being tested is a prelude to being used. Look around. The ones who move others are rarely the loudest. They are the ones who give away the least, the ones who reveal the least, because what's seen can be shaped, and what's shaped can be controlled. This is why they question you, push your patience, cross your lines, not because they see you as strong, but because they sense your emotions are accessible, and accessible means manageable. But the moment you choose to become less available, not through absence, but through detachment, you shift the balance. People can't provoke what they can't predict. They can't manipulate what they can't read. And when faced with that uncertainty, they hesitate. They second guess. They adjust. Because in a world that feeds on emotional visibility, the truly emotionless become the ones no one wants to gamble against. Not because they lack feeling, but because they refuse to bleed on command. That's where control begins. Not with words, not with force, but with the discipline to master what others waste carelessly: your emotional presence. And once you reclaim that, everything changes. You are taught to express, taught that openness is strength, that warmth wins trust, that emotional availability makes you more human, more relatable, more respected. And for a time you believed it. You smiled more, you listened more, you opened up, thinking that vulnerability would invite deeper bonds. But what you didn't see was the other side of that equation. The unseen lesson Machiavelli understood centuries ago: the more you reveal, the more you submit, the more accessible your emotions become, the easier it is for others to shape them. Because visibility breeds predictability, and in a game of control, what can be predicted can be manipulated. You weren't weak. You were trained wrong. You were taught that empathy was the highest virtue, that transparency was honesty, that to be loved you had to be understood. But Machiavelli saw the flaw. People do not respect what they fully understand. They use it, they twist it, they weigh it against their own needs. The emotionally open are not admired. They're calculated, they are played. Because in a room of wolves, the one who bleeds first feeds the pack. That's why they test you. That's why they push, provoke, and pull at your feelings. Because they know, consciously or not, that you will show your hand. You'll explain. You'll justify. You'll react. And every reaction is information. Every reaction is leverage. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't teach coldness for cruelty's sake. He taught detachment as survival, because the moment your emotions are a known variable, they become a weapon in someone else's strategy. The ones who move silently, who reveal selectively, who maintain an emotional opacity, those are the ones who bend a room without speaking. Because what can't be read can't be controlled. This is the shift you must make, from visibility to ambiguity, from accessibility to selectivity. You do not owe anyone your feelings on demand. You do not owe anyone clarity for their comfort. The game is not about being understood. The game is about being unreasonable. That is not cruelty. That is survival. And those who master it control the board. Quietly, consistently, without ever needing to announce it. Niccolo Machiavelli never preached virtue. He warned of power. He didn't write to comfort the good. He wrote to expose the truth. Because beneath every civil conversation, beneath every handshake, every smile, every polite nod, there is a current of influence, subtle, silent, unseen. And those who fail to recognize it are ruled by it. He wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved. if you cannot be both. Not because fear makes you cruel, but because fear makes others careful. Love invites entitlement. Fear creates caution. And in a world where caution is power, it is caution you must command. But Machiavelli never equated fear with force. He didn't teach violence. He taught presence. He understood the deepest human instinct. We fear what we do not fully understand. And the emotionally visible are always understood. Their kindness is predictable, their reactions charted, their intentions known. But those who reveal nothing become unsettling. And in that unease, respect is born. Machiavelli observed it in courts, in politics, in warfare. Today you see it in boardrooms, in relationships, even in casual conversations. The one who controls his emotional exposure controls the pace of the room. The one who does not react dictates the narrative. He wrote of princes, of rulers, of men who survive not by being the strongest, but by being the most unreadable. Because when you cannot be read, you cannot be anticipated, and when you cannot be anticipated, you cannot be controlled. That is why the loud are toppled, the expressive are undermined, but the ones who speak little, react slowly, and move deliberately, these are the ones others adjust around. Machiavelli taught that power lies not in the sword, but in perception. It is not what you do. It is what others believe you are capable of doing. It is not who you are. It is who they fear you might become. And in this modern world, saturated with noise and visibility, those who master emotional opacity, those who refuse to be fully seen, command a power that noise can never match. Look at any room. The most dangerous person is rarely the one speaking the loudest. It is the one whose silence holds weight. The one whose presence shifts the energy of the space. Not because they demand attention, but because they don't need it. That is what Machiavelli understood. Visibility invites manipulation. Ambiguity commands caution, and caution is leverage. In the court of power, it is not the most loved who survive. It is the most prepared. And preparation begins with this, the discipline to control your own emotional exposure. Because the game is not played on the surface. It is played beneath it, where feelings become weapons, where reactions become chains, and where the one who bleeds last wins. Look at your life. Count the moments, the times when your kindness was mistaken for weakness, when your patience was mistaken for passivity, when your empathy became a tool for others to pull your strings. How many conversations did you leave feeling drained? How many friendships turned transactional the moment you stopped giving? Think back. How many times did someone cross a line and, instead of holding it, you explained, you justified? You forgave too quickly. You reacted too visibly. And in doing so, you handed them the blueprint of your emotions. You told them exactly how to control you. In relationships, it's even clearer. You cared deeply. You communicated openly. You responded immediately. You thought transparency built trust. But what it built was entitlement. They learned that a single cold look from them would shift your mood, that silence from them would draw you in faster, that guilt would open every door. And the more they knew your triggers, the more they used them, not always maliciously. Because when someone can predict your emotional response, they stop respecting your boundaries. They start managing them. In the workplace, it plays out the same way. You over-explained your decisions. You softened your tone to seem more agreeable. You made sure not to offend, thinking that would foster cooperation. But what it signaled was this. Your reactions were pliable. You could be swayed. You could be pressured. You could be guilted into compliance. And the louder personalities? They noticed. They pushed. Because people don't test the unreadable. They test the accessible. And the moment they realize your boundaries are emotional, not structural, they bend them. Slowly at first, then openly, then without apology. Even in casual social settings, it happens. You share openly. You vent too soon. You confess insecurities before someone has earned the right to hear them. You try to bond through emotional availability. But what you're doing is training others, teaching them that you are easy to read, easy to reach, easy to pull into their frame. And the ones who know how to play that game, they'll start testing. They'll joke at your expense. They'll provoke subtle reactions just to watch you flinch. And every flinch is confirmation. You're not dangerous. You're manageable. And once labeled manageable, you'll notice the shift. The respect wanes. The space closes. The subtle violations increase. Until one day, you wonder why they treat you differently now. The answer is simple. They saw too much. You taught them too much. You played the wrong game. Machiavelli wrote of this centuries ago, that to survive in a world driven by power dynamics, you must first control how others perceive your emotional presence. Because when they can't predict you, they can't test you. When they can't read you, they can't use you. Think again. How many times did someone respect your space only after you withdrew? How many times did silence create more impact than explanation? How many relationships shifted the moment you stopped chasing? It wasn't magic. It wasn't cruelty. It was the absence of predictable reaction. And in that absence, they felt uncertainty. And uncertainty always breeds caution. Always. This is not philosophy. This is reality. The same dynamics Machiavelli saw in the courts of Florence play out today in your messages, your meetings, your relationship. The names change, the faces change, but the game remains the same. And the sooner you stop playing it blindly, the sooner you start controlling it deliberately. Control is not declared. It is demonstrated through patterns, through presence, through restraint. In a world obsessed with visibility, the one who controls visibility controls perception. And perception is the battlefield. To master this, you must first master yourself. The techniques are not about changing others. They are about changing how you show up. Because how it begins with reaction. The average person reacts constantly. Every message, every look, every word triggers a visible shift. But reaction is a mirror. It tells others exactly how to manipulate you. When you flinch, when you explain, when you defend, you reveal. And what is revealed can be shaped. The first technique is to reclaim your pauses. Do not rush to fill silence. Do not scramble to correct misunderstandings. Let discomfort linger. Let ambiguity live. Because in that ambiguity others hesitate. They double guess. And their uncertainty becomes your leverage. Next, manage your presence. Predictability kills power. If you are always available, always responsive, always agreeable, you teach others to expect it. And what is expected is devalued. You must create contrast. Periods of high engagement followed by distance. Moments of warmth followed by neutrality. Appear strategically, not constantly. Because scarcity creates value, and value commands respect. Third, strip away unnecessary explanation. You do not owe clarity on demand. Every time you justify a decision, soften a no, or explain an absence, you confirm their power to demand access. True authority tolerates misunderstanding. It allows others to speculate, because speculation forces them into uncertainty, and uncertainty creates caution. Fourth, refine your emotional delivery. Most people telegraph emotions constantly, through tone, through posture, through words. You must practice neutrality, not coldness, but calm opacity. Let others project onto you. Let them wonder, is he pleased? Is he displeased? Does he know more than he shows? This keeps them attentive. It keeps them adjusting, because when they can't map your emotional terrain, they step more carefully. Fifth, control your timing. Speed betrays anxiety. Fast reactions signal eagerness. Fast explanations signal defensiveness. But slowness signals control. In conversation, in conflict, in decision, pace yourself. Delay slightly. Pause intentionally. Let others adjust to your rhythm, not the reverse. Because the one who dictates the pace dictates the frame. Finally, practice controlled absence. Leave before your presence becomes normalized. Exit before your value fades. In social circles, in digital spaces, in professional contexts, engineer absence. Create space that others feel. Because longing is a form of control, and when your presence is rare, it is revered. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He wrote, "Not for the loud, but for the calculating. Not for those who seek constant visibility, but for those who understand that what is unseen is often most feared. These are not arbitrary techniques. They are disciplines. Disciplines that signal power. Disciplines that recondition how others engage with you, because the game is never about controlling everyone. It is about ensuring that when they engage with you, they do so on your terms, controlled, considered, cautious. The moment you implement these patterns consistently, you stop being an option. You start being a presence. And presence, in this world, commands everything. At the highest levels of control, power is no longer about action. It is about atmosphere. It is not about what you do. It is about what others feel when they are around you. The amateur seeks to dominate through words, through volume, through visible displays, but the master controls the emotional climate of the room without a word. This is psychological gravity, and the less you reveal, the heavier that gravity becomes. Machiavelli understood this. Fear is not created by force. It is created by presence, a presence that cannot be mapped, that cannot be predicted, that cannot be safely categorized. Because people fear what they do not fully understand, and they respect what they fear. The goal is not intimidation. It is tension, controlled tension. You want those around you to feel an invisible question mark when you enter, to second-guess their tone, to prepare their words more carefully, not because you demanded it, but because they instinctively sense they should. That is true power, and it is built through absence of reaction, through refusal to perform, through strategic unpredictability. The moment others can map your emotional patterns, they adapt. They grow comfortable. And comfort breeds entitlement. But when they cannot map you, when today you are engaged, tomorrow neutral, when one day you are present, the next day distant, they remain on edge. They respect the uncertainty, and uncertainty is your leverage. Consider this. The ones who are most remembered in any room are not those who spoke the most. They are those whose presence lingered after they left. Why? Because their emotional field was not closed, because they left questions unanswered, and the mind cannot resist unfinished loops. When you train this dynamic, when your presence itself creates cosmic tension, you no longer need to assert boundaries. Others enforce them on your behalf. They step lighter, they calibrate, they adjust, not because you are feared for what you might do, but for what they do not know you are capable of. This is Machiavellian presence. This is why the emotionally disciplined are dangerous, because their restraint forces others into hyper-awareness. Their calm forces others into caution. Their unpredictability forces others into respect. And when you can create this field consistently, you cease being someone who must fight for position. You become the gravity others orbit. Quietly, invisibly, relentlessly. Why must you become this way? Why must you train this restraint, this ambiguity, this psychological gravity? Because the alternative is not neutrality. The alternative is being used, being mapped, being managed. You think destroys respect. People do not test the unreadable. They test the available. They do not challenge the uncertain. They challenge the transparent. And every time you explain, every time you react, every time you defend, you signal accessibility. And accessibility in power games is fatal. Look at your life again. The relationships that deteriorated, how many began with overexposure? The respect you lost, how often was it preceded by too much clarity? The influence you failed to secure, how often did it die because you were too eager to be understood? This is not theory. It is pattern. It is human nature. And the disciplined understand this. Respect is born in uncertainty. Control is maintained in ambiguity. Authority is enforced through restraint, not through noise, not through performance, through what you refuse to give, through what you withhold. And when you consistently embody this, others adapt. They move differently around you. They speak more carefully. They watch their tone. They prepare more, not because you demanded it, but because they feel they must, because they do not know what crossing you would cost. That is true leverage. And if you fail to build it, you will remain in the same cycle. Over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-proving. and being undervalued in return. Because those who bleed on command are never respected. They are used, then discarded. The ones remembered, the ones whose names hold weight, are those whose presence was never fully grasped, never fully mapped, never fully safe. That is the path, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. And once you see this pattern, you can never unsee it. The only question that remains is this: will you keep playing the game they designed for you, or will you start designing how they play around you? What kind of presence do you want to be? One they can read in minutes? One they can map with a glance? Or one they can test, push, predict, and forget? Or one they watch more closely? One they prepare for before they speak? One whose absence they notice more than most people's words? Because the loud get noticed, but the still get remembered, the unreadable get respected. The ones who explain, who defend, who chase approval, they live in the frame others set for them. But the ones who observe, who withdraw, who calibrate, others adjust to them. That is not arrogance. That is design. The world does not reward those who bleed on command. It rewards those who master what others waste: presence, restraint, ambiguity, gravity. Machiavelli understood this. Power is not in the sword. It is in the silence before it is drawn. Influence is not in loud commands. It is in the tension others feel long after you've left the room. So ask yourself, how do you want them to remember you? As another voice among many? Or as the presence they could never quite define, but could never fully forget? The choice is not about cruelty. It is about clarity. You don't have to be feared. You have to be felt. And the ones who are felt shape the game long after the game has ended. What version of that will you build?